welcome everyone to episode 7 of the Level Up Your Wealth podcast, proudly sponsored by the gamers at Tomes Financial. You see at the bottom here, you can go to bit.ly/levelupyourwealth to get amazing content and free ebooks from Mario. I'm one of your hosts, Marcus Howard, joined by Mario Payne. Mario, please introduce yourself.
What's going on, y'all? Hope all is well. Mario Payne in beautiful and hot Jacksonville, Florida. Just happy to be here. Stock market taking a dive the last few days, so that's not fun, but we're still rocking and rolling. Happy to help people. So yeah.
Excellent. And then we're joined by Michael Yagi. Is that how you pronounce your last name, Michael?
Yep. Oh, that was a nice intro you had there. I can't follow on up, but hey everybody, I'm Michael Yagi, up in Seattle, Washington.
Thanks for joining us, Michael. As you know from last week, Michael was actually a guest for last week's episode in the audience, so he got leveled up from guest to featured guest.
Yeah.
And as Michael knows, last week we played rock, paper, scissors. So that's part of this series going forward is that Mario battles our featured guests. So as you all can see, thanks to Eugene, we've got rock, paper, scissors, rps.gg. They're going to have a live battle now. So get your bets in. No betting. But get your thoughts and your prayers and your good vibes ready.
Now, talking about betting, ESPN just made $2 billion yesterday, getting it with a company that does betting pins. So hopefully Disney stock and Mickey Mouse goes up a little bit because they've been hurting, and ESPN is part of Disney. All right, you ready, Michael? All right, so here we go. So the first 1 to 10. All right, so we will start.
Alrighty.
Oh. Already. Okay. I lost last time too, so.
Oh, okay.
This is horrible. Okay. All right. Draw. All right. Okay.
No.
Winner. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Always go scissors. Always scissors.
Killing me.
No.
Killing me.
All right.
Killing
That
me.
mind gaming a little bit there. But.
Killing me. And this is a mind game, and this actually kind of goes to investing, actually, right? So which we'll talk about at the end. All right, in the lead now. There we go, in the lead, and not so fast.
And everybody who's following along can see at the top and the bottom of the screen, their choices for their past picks. So you can even start to think ahead about where they might go next. And while we're waiting on the game, thanks and shout out to everybody who's continuing to support the podcast, who's joining us live from LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. We appreciate your support. Let us know where you're coming to or where you're joining us from. And we look forward to answering any questions you have for Michael or Mario.
Okay, we're getting close. Oh, yeah. So basically, this is patterns, and you can couple this like it's investing, right? So typically, if you're on a losing streak like I am, you don't think, you just kind of just do, right? On the flip side, if you're on a winning streak like I was when I had 3 in a row, I would just, hey, whatever works. But it's all about patterns. Investing is about patterns as well. Match point. I went from being up 5.
Does that mean if I win, I'll be a good investor? Oh,
yeah.
Maybe I switched early.
No, it's still there's match point.
Okay. Draw. Okay, match point.
My hands are actually sweating. It's an intense match of rock, paper, scissors here.
It is.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
All these draws.
Oh
man. What are we doing here? Boom! All right, match point. Okay.
All right.
Tied up.
Here we go. All right, so I'm just gonna think here. Think. Oh, draw. Okay. I'm gonna think again. We're gonna think.
Oh, it's actually like kind of hovering for me, or is that? No! Oh, well, that was actually fairly close.
Yes, the match is over, and the winner.
Man.
Yeah. So a couple things with the game. Number one is basically trending, right? So from an investment standpoint, we want to look at trends. If a stock is trending up, actually probably a good time to sell, right? Because if it goes down, then at least you kind of make money. So when I was trending up, when I had 3 in a row, I kind of got kind of greedy. Like, okay, he wants to do scissors, and I kept on doing rocks, and he covered me a few times. Then I got frustrated, and then when I got frustrated, it's like and then he started winning, right? So rock, scissors, paper is the trending. Also, as well, you can actually kind of see what type of investor that you are. So if you have a fist, that's kind of more aggressive, right? So from an investment standpoint, you're probably aggressive. You, scissors, probably more middle of the road, right? So you could be aggressive sometimes, conservative sometimes. A person who's paper, that's a more defensive play. That means the investment process is probably defensive as well. So, but yeah, great game, Michael. Great game. Great game.
Pretty interesting. The data I would actually be interested in is if somebody loses, do they double down with the same thing or do they switch it up? I would be very interested to see that, because if I lost scissors, I'm just going scissors again.
Yeah. And that's the same from like an investment standpoint as well. Like sometimes like we buy stock is going down. It's like, well, it has to go back up. But if the technicals are bad, the fundamentals are bad. Just because it's down at a lower price doesn't mean it's going to go back up. So if you double down, you might lose more money. So yeah, that's very, very interesting. But we talk about cards, so let's talk about your game. So you have a fighting game, which is pretty unique. It's a fighting game, but the moves are based on cards. So let us know kind of how you created the game. What was your thought process in making the game?
Yeah, for sure. So Genuine Games, it's spelled a little weird. It's GENUN, but Genuine Games, it's kind of the reason why we started making some of these games is really we wanted to kind of target more niche genres and bring them up to a wider audience. So rather than going for, say, your big FPS shooters like extraction shooters, battle royales, or MOBAs, like League of Legends and Dota for people that are familiar, really what we wanted to do is target genres like fighting games that people have just really fallen in love with, that they always go back to. There's always new fighting games coming out, but they're typically not considered the most successful kind of titles. And so part of it is because the games are just hard to play, to be honest. It's very competitive, so people like that. But if I'm, playing with my friend, actually when people got me into it, they're like, yeah, it's so much fun. It'll be fun after the first 40 hours. Trust us. You just need to first do that. And I was like, okay, if I wasn't working with you guys, in the same company, I don't know if I would invest this time. But, that's one of the reasons why, it's just a steep learning curve. And so what we did when we built Uppercut is really we want to expand the audience, right? And so we want to hit like more so of a mid-core audience. And so what we did is we took the hardest part of fighting games, which is the controls and the reaction speeds, and we mapped them to playing cards. So instead of putting inputs like on a controller, actually I have one here, but normally when you're like competitive playing a fighting game, you actually don't even use a controller. You buy a custom fight stick, right? And it takes a long time. So what we did is instead of doing like, quarter circle forward for a attack or something like that, it's as simple as dragging a card and saying, I'm going to play this attack. And it gives you a little bit of time to think in between. So you can say, I'm going to dash forward, do a block, dash forward, and then uppercut him. And then so you both submit cards at the same time, and then it kind of resolves in real time and plays the next couple actions. And then before it slows down, and you kind of go back and forth between this planning phase and fighting phase. So it's a little bit like rock, paper, scissors, but there's that depth that comes from more so of the esports kind of competitive nature of it. So really trying to widen the audience there.
No, that's cool. And then hello to Asher, to Patrick, to Daniel from Chile. So awesome. And so I'm a console person, right? So I love my Madden, I love my 2K. I'm a console. I know a lot of gamers play just on their phones. A lot of people use PCs, but I'm old fashioned. I want my big console with my Xbox or the PlayStation. But when I'm playing games, we have the remote slip. Like if I'm excited, you know what I'm saying, my thumbs get kind of greasy and it slips out, and then like I don't make a move, and then, oh man, something bad happens, right? So I like that concept. That actually, first I get to think, because sometimes with fighting games is more reactionary. You're like, man, why'd I do that for? So you have time to think. But then also it takes away from the thumb or the finger slip. So what made you think about cards when you actually created the game?
So Well, so I'm not the original designer, so I'm kind of saying it in my own kind of interpretation of it. So,
it takes a village, right? It takes a village.
Yeah, exactly. But cards is a really intuitive format, right? So not everybody has held a controller, but chances are most people have held a deck of cards or seen a deck of cards or something like that, and it's very intuitive. So. The other reason is because we wanted to be able to have a very quick experience where you can learn it real fast. So of course, the intuitive nature of cards that leads to that, but also lets us go to mobile. So kind of playing phone games on a fighting phone game is kind of cumbersome. But if you're doing it with cards, it's very very intuitive. You just click and drag your cards over, and that's that. And so, like similar how we were playing like rock paper scissors, one of the things we wanted people to be able to do is like. Say you have a dispute with your friend, you're like, hey, whoever, who's gonna take the bill? Sometimes rock paper scissors or something like that.
Yeah.
You can say, just 1v1 me uppercut. There's a little bit some skill involved. You get some, some depth and some strategy there, but it only takes a couple minutes to learn. So, card games really lend to that format. It's really short form, really easy to pick up and play.
Luck-based, skill-based games.
Yeah. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. So let's describe the characters and the fighters. So are you able to build your own fighter? How many fighters are kind of predetermined? Like how does that thought process? Because fighting game, we like what we like, right? We like different attributes depending on one might be aggressive, one might be defensive, like rock, paper, scissors. So, how can we pick our fighters? Can we have our own skins? Can we kind of create them ourselves and what we want to look like as a fighter? How would that process go when entering the game?
Yeah. So let's see. One thing that might be useful is actually, can I just pull up a GIF of the game? Would that be all right?
Yeah. If you have the third icon from the left, you can share your screen.
Oh, perfect.
Everybody would love to see that.
All right. Hopefully I don't. So this is our Twitter. If everyone wants to give us some love here, it's Uppercut Game at Uppercut Game. But you can see here, so it's a very pixel art style, but it's a kind of a hybrid genre, hybrid art style. You can see we have a CRT here, but it's really kind of blending a visual. Oh, can I not full screen this? Anyway, you can get the gist here. Oh, if it'll load. So you play your cards here left to right. So this is like dashboard uppercut, some recovery frames. You can see it kind of happening here. And so when you're talking about characters, you can see there's a kind of a card game element here and a fighting game. And so really we want us to keep it fighting game first in a card game format. So it's instead of having like a deck builder where you can kind of customize all your cards and like that, it's more traditional fighting game. So you have your health bars up here. Each character has a playstyle, and you don't change out your moves like a card game. It's your kit is kind of like your fighting kit. So right now we've been testing about 8 to 10 characters, but we're gonna do our kind of first launch with 4 characters, and hopefully getting up to around 8 or so. It really depends on if it hits the level of polish that we're going for internally.
Wow. That is cool. So how many cards in a quote unquote deck? So like, can I do a super move or how many moves can I make at a time?
Yeah. That's a good question. So really a lot of the frustration for me when I'm playing card games is it's like, I got a bad hand. I didn't draw the card I wanted. I don't get to play the game. Whereas in fighting games, you just have the full moveset at your disposal. So really we wanted to make sure that you can always have a move and there's always a play. And there's also information about your opponent so you can read against what they're doing. And so part of that is, making sure that there's not too many moves so that you can always, get a rotating hand of, it's not like, oh, I didn't draw the 1 out of 100 that I needed, right? So the moveset is really about, I think, around 15 moves, 12 to 15 moves. And you have about 7 cards in your hand at a time. So really, you can always be doing majority of your moveset, and you also redraw cards, of course. So, and some of the moves, like you said, a super move. If you see here, there's like a line in between some of these. Those are called multi-frame moves. And so it's not a super move per se, but it's a kind of more empowered move that takes up multiple frames, as we call them. So, you can't block there. It'll say like, hey, this is going to dash forward, charge up, and then do a huge uppercut, and you're going to come falling down in the landing frame. So that's kind of our interpretation of what might a super move be. So we've considered doing something that's like one card that takes up the whole slot, and you can only play it once, and it's just one giant super move, right? And so that's something we kind of go back and forth internally, but we think we found a pretty good mark of where we're at right now, and so we can kind of experiment with how many frames each move takes and things like that.
So then you also have defensive cards as well, right? We're talking about, just that rock, paper, scissors scenario that you and Mario were just playing through, where you could anticipate somebody might be trying to do an attack, and then you put a defense up so you take less damage. Is that also something here?
Yep. So it's when people start playing the game, it feels very rock, paper, scissors to them in the beginning, and they're like, I'm kind of just guessing. But then when you start, maybe after the second game, you're like, oh, it plays like a fighting game. You can move left and move right. So it's like, now there's spacing. You're kind of going in and out, dodging attacks, getting out of their range. There's also that kind of mind game element of you can see what you might be able to see here is kind of at the bottom here. There's this little border. We call them frame incentives. So both players have them, and you can customize where they are. And you can see, they're trying to play around frame 5, and you're trying to play around frame 1. So you want to block around theirs and attack around yours, right? Is the very intuitive, high-level thing. So of course, everyone's going to be trying to do mind games around that. So really making sure that it's not as much guessing games as it is spacing, and you're reading your opponent, and a more execution heavy than kind of luck based.
Okay, now let's talk about the actual animation. So how long did it kind of take to create the game, to do the animation? What was the thought processes in building the characters?
Yeah, you ask great questions. The animation is something that we really take pride in. So you could see here, it's very pixel art. And so one thing that people kind of think about when they see pixel art is like, oh, it's a kind of low poly. It's very easy to do. It's kind of low effort. When it's actually not quite that true. So really the team is a very tech focused team with engineering backgrounds. So we don't have a lot of art experience on the team. So we've been building the game for about 2 years now, but it's pretty much been mostly just engineers and one artist. And so now we just started reaching out and we're engaging with an art studio called PTW. And so we're working with them and our artists internally. And so it's going a bit faster now, actually quite a bit faster. But you can see here, this here is actually a 3D model. And we go through a very special process to get this look and feel, because we want to hit this retro kind of feel, but have the projection speeds that you kind of expect when you're playing AA games, right? A lot of times you want new cosmetics, you want new characters, you want to put hats on people, have cool animations. And when everything's hand pixel done, say you add a little funny hat on them, you have to reanimate especially for fighting game, it's everything needs to be reanimated and pixel drawn. So what we do is we actually do it out in 3D, throw on, like say you want to throw on a hat, you just rerun all the animations. We bake them down to 2D, do some fancy stuff I'm not qualified to talk about, and really hit that kind of pixel art look and feel, and kind of like animation. And you can see here, looks very, very retro. But yeah, this is actually 3D models, and this lets us iterate much quicker.
That's cool.
It reminds me of Dead Cells.
Oh, yeah, actually, Dead Cells did the same process.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so Dead Cells is actually one of the inspirations for our art pipeline. And so we have some custom tooling that we're building on top of Unity. Lets us move a little bit, get more fine-tuned controls over the bones, all the joints and stuff like that, so that we can have more fine-tuned control of, at this frame, spawn a particle from here, right? So that's what some of the team, Yago Descent, has been working on. And some of the things that we're kind of proud of that we haven't mentioned directly, but is like, it's definitely a blend of high fidelity and pixel art. So the environments, there's high fidelity water and reflections. Some of the rain will be, some of the lighting is kind of mixed, right? So you can see the pixelated lighting here. But on the other side, it's actually high, God rays kind of coming in and things like that. So there's definitely kind of a mash there that we're working really hard to strike that balance of something that's very hard to replicate, but very just easy to see. You're like, oh yeah, that's just very identifiable right off the bat, right? But there's some charm to it.
That's cool. And then if you have any questions from the chat, you guys can definitely chime in as well. So let's talk about the business side. So you said It's basically taken 2 years so far. So how much longer do you think it's going to take to basically release this to the public?
So we will be going to PAX West. If anyone's going to be there, we'll have a booth. So you'll actually be able to play the game there. And that will be our first kind of public play test of it. And so what we are doing, what we're doing is starting to roll out like a private invite, kind of private access. And so right now we're in pre-beta, and we expect to release sometime early Q1 of 2024. And so the reason why it's taken so long is really we wanted to have that fun first approach, meaning the game is fun with no art. It's just gray boxes. And once we have that, and you know that it's not really the art that's kind of carrying it, you know that there's going to be a lot of depth, and the game's really replayable. And then once you add on the art, then that's really hits that wow factor. So that's kind of why it's been in production for so long, is really just making sure the game has a lot, like, lasting power. And we actually want to play the game outside of work. Once it hits that, we're like, okay, now we know we have something. You work on it 8 hours a day. A lot of times it's really fun, but then at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I kind of don't want to touch that game anymore. So we wanted to make sure we built a game where we actually wanted to play ourselves. And then after that, once we do that, we land on it, and then we did a kind of a rebuild of the architecture and things like that. So we're kind of coming out of that phase the past couple of months. Okay.
So we had a great question by Emogajini, and my apologies if I jack up your name. Won't be the first time or last. What engine are you guys building on?
We're building. So Uppercut is built in Unity.
Okay. So and let's get technical now. So why that engine compared to others? I mean, if I don't know how much is patent protected.
No, not at all.
Nobody's IP, but
we're actually building 2 titles, and so one of them is in Unity and one of them is in Unreal. So we like to think we have a good grasp of what division is good for which games. Actually, one of our developers worked at Epic Games across the street over here, and most of the team's experience actually was in Unreal. Really, Unity was for the reason is it's very good for 2D. Put simply, it's good for 2D and Unity. Indie-sized teams. And really hitting that look and feel that we're going for. It was a little bit of a learning curve. Typically, most people learn Unity first, and then they go to Unreal. They go to AAA size products. All of our team has AAA experience prior to this, so everyone has, funny enough, Unreal Engine experience. So going to Unity actually was the learning curve there, but the tooling's gone quite far. So we really like both engines actually.
Okay.
You see this as being something that would be showcased at EVO next year? It's definitely got strong fighting game vibes to it. Obviously, that's the focus. I wonder if the time between rounds affects the experience of the pacing. If that makes sense.
We would love to go out at EVO. So what we're doing is we've only done a couple podcasts. We really want to go to the fighting game community, because the fighting game community is really just loves. It's really kind of hardcore, and so coming from I mostly play Street Fighter, but yeah, we would love to be there.
You can.
Yeah, exactly. I was a Dalsum player, so I was the annoying guy with those stretchy arms and teleporting around. But
also was annoying. I'm more of an E Honda fan myself. I like
that. But yeah, for the pacing, I think it. We'll have to see. I think we needed to run more playtests to be able to answer that fully. But that's why we're looking for more people. If anyone's interested in playtesting the game, we would love to have more. Yeah, exactly. So if you just want to go and shoot us a DM, follow us on our Twitter and just DM us directly, and we'll invite you to a Discord, and you can just play weekly with us. And so, but one of the cool things about the game is because it's kind of like it's there's that planning phase, and you have the animations playing out. You can play the whole game. It might take you 3 minutes, and then by the time someone ends and the KO happens, we can play back the whole fight without the pause in between, and it looks like and the goal is to have like a very gifable game where it takes like a 20-second thing, and it's like, whoa, what game is that? Where it's like perfect execution, all this. We have the flexibility because it doesn't have to be exactly 5 frames for a move versus 7 frames, and if it's 1 frame off, it's going to be unbalanced. Because our games our moves are represented as cards, we can be like, we want the camera to zoom in real close, do a little kind of uppercut, like a different angle, slow down time, and then the impact happens, right? We have that flexibility of, we like our designer calls it we're fight choreographers. That's kind of the way we're thinking about it, like really making it look and feel impactful, where we have that, kind of extra degree of freedom.
So what about like seconds per round? We play some games, it's just way too long. Some games a little bit too short. So like seconds per round. This is some type of like algorithm or study out there that you guys have, you got to tell us, but you've researched, or that you can kind of get that sweet spot of like gameplay, how long seconds wise are going to make a person play again, and how they're going to quit. Like, how does that process work, and how many seconds per round is it on average? Of course, we got people who don't fight at all, but
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of dodging the question here when I say we need more playtest data, but
okay,
part of it is that. But we definitely have a good sense of what we're looking for, right? We have a target, and we want collecting the metrics for, building out so that we can collect the metrics for exactly like what's the differentiating between someone like submitting and waiting, right? So we want to start collecting that so we understand. But to basically answer your question is, we want the game to be on mobile as well, and you're not going to sit there for 5 minutes just waiting for someone to play, right? So how do you gamify and make that feeling of a real fighting game, right, where there's urgency between your moves? And so if you notice, there's kind of left-right grid of the order of execution. So one thing we experimented with in terms of turn timers is, maybe after X amount of seconds, maybe 5 seconds, the grids start locking. Like you can't play anything in the frame 1 and then frame 2. And so something like that, or just a traditional, 30-second timer. For me, that was quite long feeling. But when players are new too, that's where we kind of just are lacking the data for that. We do want the rounds to last about 3 to 9 minutes for a full best of 3, though, just so you can kind of get in there and play the game.
And that's standard, right, for fighting games? Roughly about 2 minutes around, or is it 90 seconds? Give or take. I'm not a.
It rarely goes the full duration either.
Yeah. So M. John, again, I might check up your name. Can you tell us your Twitter, because he wanted to DM you to actually be on the play test. We want to make sure that his wish is your command. So can you let us know, or Marcus, you can put in the chat his Twitter.
I'll put it in the chat. If you let me know, I'll add it to the chat.
Yeah. If you can put it.
Michael, what's the name of your Twitter handle again for the Uppercut Games?
Uppercut Game. There's a very common name, so you have to actually type out the full thing without the S.
Yeah.
Okay. Uppercut. So at Uppercut Game, no S.
Correct.
Yeah. So at Uppercut Game. All right. Cool. Awesome. So, what platform will this be placed on? It's going to be on Steam. Is it going to be that they have to go directly to you guys and pay to play, or watch ads? Like what's the thought process on what platform?
Yeah, we definitely don't want the game to be kind of ad driven. The game's
and the reason I ask is from like a business standpoint, right? Revenue wise, we hate ads, but just from a business standpoint, the more ads, the more revenue comes in with the company. And yes, it takes away from the integrity of the game, but it does kind of help our pockets. So it's the yin and yang.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that so the game will be right now, it's only playable on PC, but the plan is to release on PC mobile, hopefully at the same time, but we'll have to figure out which one to launch first. And as far as where to get it, we haven't gone through with the publisher yet, so we don't know exactly which platforms, but we're hoping all the this kind of standard ones, Apple, Google, Steam, Epic Game Store, things like that. As well as we might have a download directly on our site if that's something that people want. But in terms of monetization, it's typically we see like hyper casual games go with the ad model. Not all the time for sure, but really what we want to do is treat it like a full-fledged fighting game. And so the way we'll monetize is once you unlock a character, you have everything. There's no paywall and you need to unlock certain cards to play the thing. It will just be free to play, and you pay for things like cosmetics. Like, hey, when you beat this guy, do you want to style on him with a custom emote? Like maybe you don't use one of your actions and you just do a taunt. And so like those kind of things are kind of bonus to the game. It's not fundamentally to play the game. So mainly ways to stylize, and it might be things for early access to characters. Like, hey, all the characters will be free to play. You might be able to grind the game to just earn it for free, or if you want to speed up your progress to maybe get the 5th character faster, you can pay for it, right? The developers, we are it's not a nonprofit, so we were trying to figure out really fair ways to ask the community where they'll be like, yeah, sure, I don't mind paying for these kind of things. So
I have a question. Earlier, Mario asked you which platforms you want to launch on. You said first on PC and then on mobile. I didn't hear you mention console, but I did hear you mention you wanted to really, dial in on the fighting game community. And someone, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of those are played on console.
That's true, yes. And so that's something we'll have to really get a gauge for, right? Because playing the game with a controller doesn't make a lot of sense. We do think the fighting game community, we know the fighting game community, they're all on console, right? And so really it's going to be, can we capture that kind of audience and say like, hey, when you're not playing on your PC and you want to just like go, or on a sit down couch, do you want something in your pocket that you can go play a game that kind of hits that itch? Especially even because we're widening the audience, right? We want to make a game where people that play fighting games they can play it with whoever, their friends, like, oh yeah, like if you don't want to learn Street Fighter, just play Uppercut with me. And so they can play on PC, they can play on mobile, and so really that's kind of the way to get as many people's hands as possible is what we're thinking. And the form factor is, the control scheme is really suited for mouse and because it's clicking and dragging cards. I'm sure we could figure out a way to do console if the demand is there though. But for us, you kind of have to pick and prioritize, which ones go on first. So that's definitely I chose mobile and PC for that reason.
Yeah, and 60% of the market is mobile, right? So that it makes sense that you definitely lean in on that.
Yeah. So I know Q1 is the tentative release day or the tentative soft launch. And if it's a soft launch, then when's the tentative release day or quarter?
So the way that we actually want to do it is kind of like we want to roll it out in sort of phases, and when we hit metrics where like, hey, this is when people want the game, right? We can see from the like how many times are people coming back to the game, how long they're playing it for, and so our kind of release strategy is a little atypical in that we want to open it up to community clashes, for example. So we would say, hey, Double Tap Podcast, we went on there like, hey, we're going to invite you to playtest, and eventually we will let your subscribers and your community join and battle against other communities and really start slowly opening that to more and more playtesters. And then once we see a healthy people amount that are inflow of people coming to the game as well as coming back to the game, and we're hitting the metrics, really that's when we'll release, right? Is we want to hit that as quickly as possible, obviously. And so we're really excited to start rolling that out. Actually, we're putting together the kind of the rule set for that for people to start getting involved. And so what we would like is to have the full version of the game by early Q1 of 2024. But people will be able to play the game and kind of follow our progress, play developer builds well before that. And so we're hoping by PAX, we'll have a stable build. Of course, it'll be a developer build, so they might hit some crashes here and there. But playing on stream, having even just community small tournaments and things like that.
And where and when is PAX West?
PAX West, I believe, is September 1st to the 3rd or 4th.
Okay.
In Seattle. Yeah.
That's coming up quick. Okay.
It's a big small convention. So I think I heard it was like 300,000 people, which sounds like a lot of people, but when you go there, it doesn't feel that big.
How does 3,000 people don't feel that big? Like that's a lot of people.
Well, I guess it's like you what's it called? Maybe I'm like one of those people. I'm like, oh, kid, where if you're not in front of your face, you don't notice. It's a big convention center, so you go around, you see like a couple rooms. You're like, oh, okay, there's got to be at least like 1,000 people here. No, apparently it's about 300,000.
Wow. Man, Marcus, you need to pull some strings, see if we can do the podcast there.
Yeah, we can be one of the 300,000.
I hope I'm not being misquoting. I could be off by 0, so I'm not there. So
30,000 is still a lot of people.
When I say it out loud, it's like, how can, because what was the game? Not GamesBeat. what's the one in Germany? The really big one.
Gamescom.
Yeah, that one's like in the millions, right?
So okay, so we're about 3 years into basically the soft and then launch. So kind of what's the goal of the game? You know, from a success standpoint, what would be successful? Is it, you know, a certain amount of users, a certain amount of, we're not asking about the revenue numbers, but a certain amount of revenue? Like, what is success from the team from a game standpoint?
Oh yeah. For us, you know, it definitely is an indie team. So all of us, we actually went to the same school called DigiPen, which is the game development school, before going to AAA Studios. Kind of came back. So it really is kind of that feeling of like, hey, we want to make games because we want to make games. And so for us, success is, you know, obviously being rewarded for that. So, you know, making our money back, and then some extra where we can keep working on the game, add more features, really see people liking and talking about our game, especially on a global scale. So for us, actually, we're considering where we want to launch first. And so we're even thinking about Southeast Asia and Latin America as being one of our target core launches. Of course, we'll be global everywhere and kind of organic growth, but where we want to kind of figure out where we want to be in terms of user acquisition and things like that. Really for us, success for us is just, you know, the more people that enjoy our game. Obviously, it's super easy to say that, but that's just kind of how it is, you know, as long as we're able to, you know, work together and have fun making our games, I think that's, you know, success for us. I don't think anyone is here like, hey, I just really want to make that X amount of dollars so I can just quit. You know, no one really feels that way. So.
Yeah. Nah, because you always want to improve the game. So to that point, you know, we've had other people on the show who kind of created games, and it was like, you know, they kind of have their day job and they kind of don't do this on the side, but it's like basically a second job. So for like the team, is it like, you know, the priority job, or does people kind of doing side gigs as well, or you guys kind of all in is what you guys are doing 24/7?
Oh yeah, no, this is our we've been working full time on this, so this is our full-time studio.
Wow. Yeah. So you guys love what you're doing, man. Especially thinking about, you know, you want to make money, but because typically from a business standpoint, like you kind of have a goal, but it seems like you guys, it's just the love of the game, love of to help people, loving just like, so when I won, right? Not bragging it in, but not bragging, but like it's like that feeling you have when you win. Right? It's like, yeah. So like now if they could capture that, like in like medicine or like in like a vitamin, like that you're feeling that you have when you win, oh my gosh. Whoever does that's going to be the billionaire of all billionaires. Like that kind of tiny. It's just like as you play, it's a split second of winning. It's like yes, then it goes away. But if you could just kind of just capture that legally though, like you're not you know. But anyways, yeah. So Michael, can you show us a teaser of the game?
Right? We have another game that we do have a teaser of if you want to see that. We haven't actually started the Twitter for it, but we can kind of pull it up. So this is what the other, let me just see here. It might not come through. We'll see what the video is like.
Let's see here. And while that's happening, again, anybody, if you have any questions, financial wealth and certified or financial planning questions for Mario, or any game development or Uppercut questions for Michael, feel free to ask those in the chat. Happy to answer those for you.
All right, let me know if you can hear this. Oops.
So you got a racer you're working on.
Exactly, yeah. So it's definitely a development teaser. Some of that, actually, a majority of that is shot in engine, so that's kind of what you see is what you get. But it's really what we wanted to capture was, again, a niche kind of genre, which is racing games, and expanding it. So the way that our approach to do that is really just making that kind of cinematic gameplay feel like when you watch a movie, you're like, I wish I could just do that. I was like, let's just capture that, because one of the reasons why it doesn't feel that, for me personally, when I'm playing racing games, because I play most genres except for racing, is it doesn't feel that fast once you're going fast all the time, and you can't really do these crazy movie stunts, and the controls are not that gamified, right? It's like either a sim or you just hold left on the stick and you kind of just cruise through, right? And so really what we wanted to do was hit that esport realm of really rubber banding the intensity and speed of the game. So you don't go fast all the time. You actually have to slow down to take a shot. So it's kind of a racing battle royale where anything goes. You can use a railgun to just one shot somebody. But in order to do that, you have to give up controls of your ship, take out your gun, charge it up, shoot a laser, and then go back into your ship and kind of do a really fast warp, which what you saw. So the speed is definitely very highly varying. We've done a lot of work into the netcode to allow for really fast moving over the network and kind of going for that battle royale. Battle royale, I kind of use it kind of loosely. It's more of a death race, I guess. But I use that term because it kind of instills that battle to the death kind of racing game.
Yeah. So we had a question. So from about the Uppercut Games. So people often get attached to characters in fighting games, which is true, as I talk about. Honda, is there a narrative element behind the game or behind the characters? So let's kind of get into the game.
Yes. So internally, when we develop the characters, so this is actually a really good question. We actually got asked this before, so I'll try to summarize it so I don't bore everybody. But the way that we do it is we start from a character style that we wanted to hit, right? So it's about a character kit. How do we want to feel? We need an aggressive fight. So definitely starts more from that side. And then we work our way and say, like, hey, we want this character to fill this motif and niche. And we start saying, oh, actually, I'll just pull it up for you guys so you can see kind of the next portion that we went through. And then so when we start kind of hitting that, we start saying, like, okay, if a character that played kind of hit and run, what would they look like? And then so let's see if I can pull it up here. Here we go. I don't know if there's a thread here for this. So you can kind of see some of our thought process. We definitely go through and we see, then we start going into, if they're hit and run, they do damage over time, they're obviously a poison kind of character. Do we want, what kind of elements capture that poison thing? Right? What if we just made them a mushroom? Right? And so we definitely do a lot of exploration there. And then we do the backstory from there and say, like, okay, where would a mushroom come from? What would they act like? Things like that. And so when we send it over to our artists in the art studio, they ask for things like, is this a old man character that has lots of wisdom that wants to kind of like move slow and lumberly, or are they going to be like kind of more of a goofy thing? And so really it's going to be like, how do we imagine this character being in our heads? And when we do that, they start coming to life in terms of form and personality. And we really hope that comes through when people actually get to play our game. And you can see here, like, this is quite a lot of variation. This is the same character before we landed on the mushroom design of the expression that they went through. And then, but once we start doing that, we can really add a lot of the lore because we know that we have a couple of regions. And we built a lot of backstory into the game. And we want to do really creative storytelling we want to make sure that it's not really up in your face, but when people want to like start exploring and learning more of like, oh, this character they have the same like emblem on their artifact of their power weapon, or that artifact looks like it came from this part of the world. How come this character has it? Or what are the artifacts? Like how come some characters like start really doing more question based, and the game is going to be able to be fully played without kind of diving into the lore. But for us, it's at least for the designers, it's a really kind of core part of the game. And so kind of my ultimate goal is to have enough story where but it's more on building blocks. So we leave enough creative freedom of like, here's all of our story. We thought about a lot of stuff, but it's very flexible inside of it. So we don't say like, it has to be exactly this. Like, hey, there's a religion based off of these artifacts, and you want this from this time period, and everyone in the world should be wondering where they came from, how this power got to be, this kind of thing. And so that when we work with, say, somebody that like they do comics and they just like the IP of the game, they can come in like, hey, yeah, let's collaborate here. We'll let you guys do a little miniseries and something like that. But there's enough of a lore and backstory per character that they can go in and do that, right? So whether we tell the story through the game or it's elsewhere, there's definitely a lot of backstory to these characters.
And that's have you considered esports as part of your strategy? I don't know if I think you and I had this conversation before. One of my favorite games ever is Knockout City. Rest in peace. They didn't consider esports when they launched, and it caused issues with retention for their users. Great game, still I think didn't get as much limelight as it deserved. But I think that's important to think about. They were missing features like spectator mode and just different core features that you would need if you wanted it. They didn't. I'm not even saying they needed to have like tier 1 professional teams playing the game, but they didn't have that piece of it in place in order to keep people coming back and nurturing that community.
This is a very hard question to answer, but something I'm very passionate about. So we talked about this before, Marcus. So yeah, I'm coming from a background of esports as a player. So I've played a lot of esports, whether League of Legends, StarCraft, Call of Duty, shooters, whatever it is, even mobile like Clash Royale and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely wanted to be an esport. Really, the kind of devil's in the detail, to use that phrase, is what does being an esport kind of give us? Is this like, how do we actually do this out in practice? You can't just throw out esport at the end and be like, yeah, we're an esport because we put some money into it, right? So is the game competitive? Does it competitive integrity? Does it do well to tournament format? Does it do well to being spectatable? Does it feel fair if you win or lose? Does it have that kind of intensity that people want to see in a traditional sport, right? Is it going to be so competitive that it kind of blocks out other non-competitive players, right? And then also too, how do you monetize esports, right? That's something that I know that you guys have a big background in. And so one of our advisors is the ex-VP of strategy at Epic Games, or principal strategist. So he worked on, Fortnite and a lot of those titles. And I've had the privilege of talking to the VP at Blizzard, as well as some people that run esports at Riot Games. And, so definitely really trying to involve myself very heavily in esports. And really, it's kind of the hard part is you really need to do it correctly in that the community decides that it is an esport and they kind of host these tournaments and things like that. So it's not really the publisher's job to stand it up, but really give them the tools that they need to self-govern and make these tournaments, so that you're not just saying like, hey, it's a user acquisition. If I put in this much money, do I get this much out? It's really hard to even make that data decision. Right. So really the short answer is yes, we would like esports. It's really about being very cognizant of how we get there. Right. And making sure that the community can thrive. And so that's what the Creator Clash is really kind of a step toward that, to really do that. It's like when we open up a whitelist, is you join as part of a community, and you're kind of playing versus other communities. So there's kind of a little bit of a competitive nature there where you're trying to get more points and things like that. So we'll kind of slow roll it there, but definitely we have talked to other esports organizations, whether it be Genji Esports, a lot of esports actually, kind of getting ready for those conversations.
Yeah, and we had a couple, because we run up we had an hour, so we want to make sure we respect your time. We had a couple more questions though. So the first question is the racing game that you just demoed, and thank you for that. So is that game mainly a battle royale type game? Is there any other modes featured in that game?
Oh yeah, okay. So the primary mode that we will be launching with, again, given playtest feedback, what we kind of envision is it's a racing game with combat. So it's I don't know how to describe it. There's a lot of kind of racing movies out there, and so really it's kind of it's racing first where anything goes. So you're trying to get to the finish line. You might not make it, right? And so we want people to play the game how they want. So what I mean that is, some people want to win the race by just racing. They're like, I don't care about combat. I'm just gonna be the fastest person. And some people are like some people just have they put too many hours in this game. I'm just gonna get that guy. I'm going to snipe him when he goes across the finish line. And so it's really point based. And so we have to tweak the values of how you earn points, but you earn points based on your finish place. But also, like, as long as you're in first place versus, third place, you're getting constant points. And so you might, if you're in first place the whole time and you get past the very end, you still might end up with more points, right? And there's also points for combat. So some people might, like, if I finish fourth, but I get 2 kills, I take out 2 other races, I might end up first because, it's really just the strategy. And we want the meta to be constantly evolving, where there's no just like, this is the best thing to do, right? That's kind of the other part of the esport is you have to make sure that people constantly invent new theories like, no, this is the best strategy. This is the best strategy. Yeah. And you have to change in game. Like, there might be the same track, but depending who you're racing versus or what's happening live in the game, the strategy might evolve from go fast all the time, just hold straight, to like, oh, like this guy, he's got a huge bounty on him.
Yeah,
I'm gonna just get that guy, right? But there's also we'll have objectives in the game. So like whoever gets the fastest lap gets a bonus, things like that. So you might say, hey, I might just finish top 8, but I'm gonna get 1 really fast lap to get that fastest lap bonus, and then I'm gonna get 2 kills, and that's
Mad Max.
Mad Max. Yeah. And I actually like that because that keeps people engaged. It keeps coming back with more eyeballs for people playing the games, and they kind of have you want to monetize. And so we had one more question from Vice Grip Brown. That sounds like a 70s band, right? Vice Grip Brown. That's like one of those black exploitation movies, I guess, right? So he said, do you guys do animation music? He made a song on his Twitter that I guess is pretty cool. And I guess has to be pretty cool. And he want to know if your studio makes animation videos.
I want to create an animated animation video for these songs. Oh, if you want us to make a video for your things, that's not something we do. I mean, if you want to kind of use our IP or like do a music video over like a fight sim or something like that, definitely go for it. We don't have any. We want people to make content using our stuff, so feel free to do that. Get some cool clips in the game. But in terms of making music video specifically for you, that's not something that we've done now.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So run up on time, but we always ask a final question. So I do financial planning for a living. I'm blessed to help people manage hundreds of $1 million. So kudos to me. But we always want to pick a stock. So for you, what is your go-to stock? We're gonna pull up the chart, and we're going to see if that's a winner or lose. If it's rock, is it paper or is it scissors? So what's your favorite stock?
Oh, no. I am perhaps one of the worst people. No financial advice here. So if you want to make money, you should bet against me. I know my dad is in the finance world, so I kind of leave that one up to him. So for me, I'm like, maybe I'll throw something in S&P 500 and call it safe, So I'm not the best person to ask there.
I think Unity's publicly traded though, right?
I think Unity is actually, yes. Let's look at Unity. All right.
I'm not saying that's your pick, but since you happen to be building with it.
Yeah, well, if I could pick Epic Games stock and they went public, maybe I would do something like that because I don't think they're publicly listed yet. I know
Roblox by Tencent, and Tencent is publicly traded.
Yeah. Now Tencent is definitely publicly traded. Tencent. Let's pull up Tencent actually. Tencent Holdings.
A little bit. I didn't trade stocks. I did cryptocurrencies.
Crypto. Okay, crypto. So as I pull up the chart, so what do you feel about crypto? You think it's a flash in the pan? Do you think it's here to stay? What are your thoughts about crypto?
I definitely like what it's going for, like financial freedom, things like that. So I really like kind of the mission behind it and what it enables for people. But I do think a lot of people kind of get caught up in kind of the buzz and the craze behind it. So it's a love-hate relation. Like there's a lot of kind of fanatical people that are in the space, but I definitely love it. there's definitely a use case for things like Bitcoin. There's so many cryptocurrencies that it's hard to keep track of them all. I do like Bitcoin in general, and the utility. I like the blockchain. In terms of cryptocurrencies, that's something that's highly up to skepticism. So kind of leave it to that, but the technology behind it, actually, being a software engineer previously, I find it very interesting. So some of our games actually, there's a lot of kind of connotations around Web3 and blockchain. So for us, it's just like another database, to be honest. So we kind of leverage it in that sense. It's so technology is cool, and I do like Bitcoin and some of the other ones like Cardano and stuff like that.
All right, so I'm gonna share my screen, and we're actually gonna go over Block, right? So it's actually a fund. The ETF is called Exchange Traded Fund, and that's basically like a swimming pool of different stocks. But it's a whole bunch of companies that are actually in the blockchain community. They're doing different things to improve the blockchain. They're creating their own chains. So it's actually a company that basically took all those stocks, like your Riot, your Marathons of the world. We all know Riot, right? Mm-hmm. Michael Saylor's company as well, but they actually created their own fund. So if you look here from a charting standpoint, doing the quote unquote Bitcoin boom, it was up by 390%. So literally in a year and a half, if a person had basically $1, they made 390. If they had 10 grand, that's a pretty big bag from 10 grand to $390,000. But then, as you say, what goes up must come down, right? Boom, it went down by 74%. So definitely hit a rocky road. However, as I think crypto is definitely decentralized. When it comes to Bitcoin, I think that might be centralized. You have big old banks like JP Morgan that's just buying tons of Bitcoin. So Bank of America as well. So it'll be interesting to see from a Bitcoin standpoint if that ever gets centralized. However, though, for a person who's a bottom picker, I don't know if you're familiar with like charting, but you have what you call, make this bigger, right? We have basically EMA, right? So EMA is like what is average. And so the orange line is the average of the stock. And then the purple line is if it's above average. So typically, if it's above average, it's doing good. If it's below average, it's going down. But something just happened. Literally June, it basically crossed over. So some people call that a golden cross, where it went from being below average to above average. So for a person who quote unquote wants to buy at the bottom, but wants to buy when it's trending up, Block actually might be a good investment. Now, of course, who knows future but God? I'm a certified financial planner, but you got to be my client to give you actual advice. However, though, if it gets back to where it was, that's 117% return. So even if it takes you 2 years, if it takes Block 2 years to get back to where it was, that's almost 60% a year when the average stock does 8. So not telling you what to do, but if you follow charts and you follow trends and you look into the EMA from a monthly standpoint, Block might be something you might want to do your research in. So look at you.
I actually have a very quick, hopefully I don't embarrass myself with this question.
Yeah.
But while I have an expert on the line, with the time horizon that long, well, in my mind, it seems long, right? That might not be the case.
Wait, 2 years is long? That's short, man. Like, so what I
don't know how the daily, like people that day trade, maybe that's long. People that hold stocks long term, maybe that's not long at all. But how much does the trading volume matter compared to like how long your time horizon is, right? If the trading volume is low, it seems like long term horizon is that something you think about, or
yes. I love see now we're in my world now. I love the questions. These are questions y'all should be asking. But so from a short-term standpoint, right? So we look at charts, right? When we look at charts, you have 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 minute. Like that's basically day trading. Minutes is swing trading. Hours is kind of swing trading, or even long-term investing. But volume comes into play if you're day trading by seconds or minutes, right? Because the more volume a stock has, if it's trending up. So again, if we kind of look at the EMA, it's trending up, right? So if it's more volume that's trending up, it's going to push up the stock, right? Think about Barry Bonds, I know you're on the West Coast, but he was juicing. him and Mark McGwire, they were Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa don't look like what he used to, but Sammy Sosa, they were juicing. So, if it's juicing or it's trending up, if you have high volume, it's going to push the stock higher quickly. So the more volume you have from a day trading standpoint, yes, it does matter. From a long-term standpoint, if you're going to hold something for 6 months, a year, 2 years, the volume really doesn't matter as much, right? Because you're going to have good days and bad days, days where the volume is rocking and rolling, days where the volume really does not matter. So long-term perspective, volume doesn't matter. But if you're day trading, if you're getting in and out of stocks, then you definitely want to look at the volume. And also another thing to think about as well is RSI. RSI is called Relative Strength Index. So if the RSI is high, that means it's probably overbought. So if you want to short or kind of make money when people are not making money per se, that's where you want to actually sell. When the RSI is low, that means it's probably at its bottom, and that's a way for you to kind of get in at the bottom. When people are selling, you want to buy. So say, oh, my video was freezing. Oh no, the internet did not want me to reveal my secrets.
Can you repeat the last 5 minutes you cut out?
Oh, look.
No, I'm just joking.
Okay.
You heard me all the time. That was good. That was good.
But now the answer to your question though, volume is important if you're day trading.
I have one last question on my end. I'm actually very curious. So again, preface, I don't know anything about lickety split about trading. So the question I have is like, how much can you see like people like a order book? Like, can you see what what people's orders are, or is that like hidden, or do some people have access to that if you're running like these? And then like the other thing is like, are there things like people that like banks or institutions that supply liquidity, like market makers? Like the concept of that to me is like super foreign, and like at some point can you make decisions based off of if you can understand like who's supplying liquidity? Like this is typically when they're because they probably move money like way more than like the small guy like myself, right? So can you trade based off of your understanding of like, hey, when this bank gets in, this is their pattern before they take profits. So can you make informed decisions based off of that, or is that just completely abstracted information where you are obfuscated information?
No, you can. So like it depends on what platform that you use. So this platform that I was showing was a TradingView. They had that option. A Webull, which is another for like your day traders of the world. It's another platform you can use, and they show that. The issue is though, right? So typically when you have a large market maker, which is a market mover, if they put in a big block, that stock is kind of already ran, right? So what you don't want to do, you don't want to get into something where, they made an investment. Now that stock ran up by, let's say 1-2%, you get in, and then of course they get out, or the whales, short it, right? And then it starts going down and you lose. So it could be an indicator of like maybe what the market is kind of doing, but over the short-term basis, you might get yourself in trouble because, you've kind of missed out. Right. So GameStop, we all know GameStop, right? Yeah. GameStop was rocking and rolling. You had people that cashed in their Bitcoin as the Bitcoin run was going up, used that to buy GameStop when it was kind of pumping up. And then you had the layman people of the world, the people just kind of found out on Reddit after the fact, not the Wall Street bets people, but the Reddit people after the fact, or people in chat rooms, and then they buy it at the top. Then as it starts going down, the people who kind of made their money, they get out. The people who just got in, they're like, well, it went up so much, it's gonna rebound, and then it goes down and down and down. You look up, you lost 80% of your darn money, right? It's like, that's not fun. And then when that happens, it makes you think twice about investing again, which hurts you, because investing in the long run is always the way to go to make money, in my opinion, unless you build a great game and get to the bag. So you can do that, but you just want to be careful.
Great question, Michael. If you have any other questions, actually, if you go to bit.ly/levelupyourwealth, you can get a 15-minute no-cost consultation from Mario himself. And anybody can do that. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this later, if you go to bit.ly/levelupyourwealth, you too can have a 15-minute consultation with Mario. And obviously, he's a wealth of information.
Yeah. Actually, I'm my own fund I have my own index fund in the stock market. So I'm not just a talking head. I actually have my own fund in the stock market that's SEC registered. So pretty cool.
That was very cool.
Thanks so much for your time, Michael. Before we go, we have one more thing that we do is every week we pick one of the people who asked, some of the best questions, the most questions out of the audience, as you saw last week, right? And we award them with digital copies of my book and of Mario's book. So if you don't mind doing the honors, if you pick someone who asked the question that you thought was just intriguing for this week.
Look what I got. That's Mr. Esports book.
Yeah.
My book is, you can't see it. Hold on.
I'll ask one of the early people. Oh no, maybe I don't want to pick this person. The name's too hard to pronounce. You disqualified yourself.
Mbodini Matewa.
Yeah.
I'm butchering your name, and I'm sorry. I'm bad with names, really good with faces, terrible with names. But we see you. We appreciate your question. We appreciate everybody's questions, all the comments, everybody joining in. We will get those 2 copies of the book to you. And then finally, before we leave, Michael, can you let everybody know how they can support you, where they can find you, when and where they can sign up for the play test? Because I will be doing that right after this episode is over.
Yeah, the best way is just follow our Twitter, and we'll probably post either an application form or if I don't know if the DMs are enabled, we gotta go enable those. But the Twitter is @Uppercut Game, and so hopefully I believe we threw it in the chat. I'll
do it one more time for anybody who's just now joining us, because you don't want to miss this opportunity. Yeah, okay, and with that, thank you for your time. Mario, can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah. Y'all can just at me all platforms, either Relax Investor, right? My book, Relax Investor, or Payneful Profits, PAYNEFUL Profits. Because we make money, it's painful, but we still make money. Well, y'all can click the link and check me out. Here to help you guys. And thank you guys. And next week, tune in and definitely ask questions. The more questions, the better, especially financial questions too, if you want to, get my thought process.
Excellent. So we'll be back next Wednesday again on the 16th. More great guests, more great questions, talking video games and financial literacy. Michael, thank you for your time. Everyone who joined in, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Peace.